coming out. It's nice to be back in the 3rd District. We've usually done it in other locations. I know Affiliate Scene is usually one of the locations we go to Mayor's Night. I have to say, it's probably the first time we've had a Mayor's Night in City Hall since the beginning, since the very beginning. So it's been a long time. It's nice. This is the first time we've done it in the lobby. We know it's a lot tighter than usual, so we appreciate you bearing with us. I want to point out that we're filming this live on Go Hammond TV right now as well. You can watch it live at home. We do like having an audience. So, and this is driven by questions. I want to remind you of that also. Written questions are turned in over here. I can't see them over there, but there's written questions right over there. Right now we only got 4 of them. Now usually 4 questions will generate a topic, but if we only have 4 questions once we get done, I mean, I don't think much of my staff's going to complain, but I just want to give you an opportunity to ask questions. So. Anyway, I'd like to introduce 3rd District Councilman Anthony Higgs.
Good evening. Just prior to getting here, it was an incident in my district, so I had to go out there. I guess a couple of guys got shot on the corner of Moss Street. So hopefully my prayers go out to them, as well as to Lula Stalling, who was a former precinct person in the city of Hammond and very active in the community, who passed away on last night. So I want to especially just send up a prayer to God. And Heavenly Father, we just come before you saying thank you, Lord, for another day. We ask that you guide us and direct us, Lord, so that we can do what's necessary to make our city a better place for all the residents in this great city, which I love so much. We ask for these blessings in your Son, Jesus' name. We pray, amen. I am extremely happy to serve you as your 3rd District Councilman. If you have any concerns or questions for me, feel free to contact me at my home or my office. I'm hoping that we can get some more projects done this year. We are facing some difficult times in the city, but with God's help and your patience, we'll get through this. So we ask for your patience and understanding. And with anything else to say, I'll turn it over to the mayor and we can move on with the questions and concerns. Thank you so much.
Michelle Turchaney is running around with the microphone right now. We're going to give the microphone to the department heads to introduce themselves to you. We couldn't fit everybody in the table, so some of them are in the audience today. So let's start with Awana.
Awana Miller, Community Development.
Ed Cruz for Hammond Water.
Chris Campbell, Information Technology. Assistant Chief John Doty.
Carmen Paniagua, Hammond Housing.
Mylan Krasinski, Port Authority.
Kelly Kearney, Code Enforcement. Kurt Cook, Building.
Jim Callahan, Inspections.
Donna Muta, Hammond Parks and Recreation.
Alexius Barber, United Neighborhoods, Inc.
Chris Sakalaris, Legal Aid.
Ron Novak, Environmental Management.
Stan Desotny, City Engineer.
Anthony Higgs, 3rd District Councilman.
Bob Lendy, City Controller.
Courtney Sazwa, College Bound.
Sharon Daniels, Personnel.
Jeff Smith, Fire Department.
Phil Talon, Planning and Development.
Scott Mitchell, Sewer Department.
Ricky Gartua, Sanitation.
Timothy Wood, Street Department.
Kathy Kazmierzak, Recycling.
Michelle Turchaney, Hammond Parks and Recreation.
Great. All right. So the people that helped me run the city, I want to say thank you to the elected officials in attendance, besides 3rd District Councilman Anthony Higgs. That's the guy, Hammond City Councilwoman at large, Janet Burnett. So thank you for coming out. I want to remind you and those in the TV audience that next Mayor's Night Out is Wednesday, June 27th, 2012. In the 2nd District, it's going to be at the Hammond Academy of Science and Technology at the Haas School on the rooftop, weather permitting. If it's raining that day, obviously this is the first time we've ever scheduled an outdoor Mayor's Night. If it's raining that day, we have a rain out location. It's inside the school. So hopefully we can do it outside. That's going to be a 33-unit court. If you have not had a chance to see the Hammond Academy of Science and Technology, it's a great opportunity for you to get out there and see it as a civic event. So thank you very much for coming. Michelle, why don't we go ahead and get started?
Our first question is from for the Parks Department, and it is in regards to 1040 ordinance tree, and that's all they have on.
Okay, well, you know what's funny is right off the bat, the microphone's gonna go to Donna Muda, who used to run around with the microphone. Now she's the superintendent, is that the position? Okay, superintendent of the Hammond Parks Department. Donna, why don't you talk a little bit about what you know about how you deal with trees?
First thing we do is if a resident calls us, we go out and assess the tree. And then if it is on city property, we ask them to fill out a tree form. And then we put it in the queue based on the condition of the tree. If it's a danger, we'll remove it right away. If it's not, it gets put in the queue, and we typically go out in the winter time and remove trees because we're cutting grass and whacking weeds right now. There have been a couple of trees in this district that are on private property, which means that if they are determined as a nuisance, that the inspections department would get it removed and apply that to the person who owns the property's tax bill.
We get a lot of complaints about trees, and when we go out to investigate, we find out that the trees on private property, and we, that's illegal, first off. So, I mean, if we did do that, I mean, it would be illegal. I mean, there's not much difference between that and sidewalks for votes, what people went to jail for in Chicago. So we're real sticklers, obviously, about not doing that. And I think some of the public has trouble understanding that sometimes. That maybe, even though the house was knocked down at the house next door to you and there's a tree in the yard and it is about to fall on the house, if it's on private property, we can't touch it. We have to go through a process and get approval from the judge to do that. So a lot of people get angry at the Parks Department because they're not responding to those requests, but we have to be careful. So, anything else?
I think that's it.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Good to see you. All right. All right, anybody have any follow-up questions about trees or specific examples?
It's another ordinance too in the sanitation department that it's an ordinance that says the sanitation department has to cut down trees too.
The sanitation department. That's the first I've ever heard of that.
No. It's an ordinance. I mean.
Okay. Well.
I mean, I ain't gonna pull it out right now, but I have it.
Right.
That says the sanitation department's supposed to cut them down.
Okay, well, I appreciate the point. Thank you. Yeah. This about trees? Yeah. Awesome. Hi, Debbie. Nice to see you.
If your neighbor cuts their tree down and they're burning a stump in their front yard, legal?
Not legal. I'm going to have Ron Novak, Hammond Department of Environment, explain it. From what I understand, let's see how good I remember it. If the smoke gets into your neighbor's yard, that's when it becomes illegal, right?
Right. Open fires are legal to the point that they cause a nuisance or a fire hazard on the property or an adjacent property owner. A lot of times we have individuals that have respiratory, circulatory problems, that smoke and odors cause problems, sometimes causing people to go to the hospital. So whether it's local law or it's state law, essentially you cannot create a nuisance by that fire.
What if they're grilling their steak in their backyard and smoke gets into your house? Is that illegal?
That would be a private nuisance. We don't get involved in those. We would probably never be in the office during the summertime. We're really looking for disposal of materials that are causing a problem. If you're cooking food, typically it's a short period of time. Fires can go on for a long period of time and cause a hazard.
If you're cooking food, it's typical to share it with your neighbor if the smoke's getting into the stuff.
Excellent advice.
So technically, if you're burning, it's illegal because the smoke's getting in the neighbor's yard. Yes, ma'am.
She called several departments and she just kept getting flipped all over.
When?
Meanwhile, her daughter is choking to death and her trach is a mess because
When was this?
her daughter.
When? No, when?
A couple of weeks ago.
Oh, was it a weekend?
And I
or
went
was
to the fire department. I called code enforcement. They told me that wasn't their problem. And he burned for like 2.5 weeks. And every day I would go there and ask him, please don't do it because Shariva can't breathe. And the second time I went, he said, I don't care, I'm going to keep burning. And I thought, like, there was so much smoke, like, on our block, I thought, well, the police would have seen it. It went on for 2 weeks, but nobody ever did anything.
Right.
Then finally, environmental, I called them, and they...
So that's the proper department. I mean, that's who would handle it. Usually a phone call to my office would solve that kind of thing also. Did you call the mayor's office, Debbie, or?
No, I actually went to the fire department
Well, and I
first.
appreciate you going directly. A lot of people use us as that's the first place usually people call, but I'm really sorry about that. I mean, we're sticklers about that too. I know Ron's, do you remember this case, Ron? Where's my,
Yeah,
where's JD? Oh, good.
we got when we got the complaint, we went out the same day. We talked to the gentleman. He understood what the rules are, and he just went instead of trying to burn it out, to cut it out and remove it. And we really had no problem with him whatsoever after we talked to him.
But that was 2 weeks. It was not burning.
Right.
Before I finally found your department.
Right.
You know, I went to the fire department and called code enforcement, and everybody was saying that it wasn't their department. And finally, I found out who called.
We're the ones.
Well, it's frustrating to hear that. I don't think any of these guys are going to say that they remember that phone call in particular. I wouldn't say it either if the mayor was right there, but that's frustrating to hear if my employees were treating you like that, Debbie. And I wish you would have called my office because we would have known to give it to Ron. And John, how often as a police officer do you get complaints about illegal burning through dispatch? Because it sounds like in this case, and I know you live in the Schleicher area, it sounds like in this case this was going on over a couple-week period. And Debbie says you called the police department? Until you call 911.
I was trying to do it peacefully.
I mean,
I didn't want to cause a problem in our
No, I wouldn't have
neighborhood,
called 911 on
but
this.
my daughter's breathing was upmost, and so I was trying to call and do what I thought was the right thing,
Okay.
and have conversation with the neighbor on a couple of different occasions, and he didn't really respond.
I would say, Mayor, that the calls are fairly common during the summertime, mostly spring and fall, during the times when weather's just starting to get a little cooler. Generally, when we respond, please don't call 911. We'll take it on a regular line from this point on, and we'll come just as fast, I promise.
What do you usually do in a situation like this? You just tell them to cease and desist, or do we cite them, or technically it's illegal?
Yes, absolutely, against the ordinance. Most of them are in containers. We rarely get a fire that's on the ground. They're in containers like you see at Home Depot, so there's probably no actual fire threat. However, there is a smoke inhalation threat. It's coming over the fence, and that's why we're getting the call. We're not getting a call because there's a fire there. We're getting a call because the smoke's going in the yard and it's bothering the neighbor next door because they're having to take it in because it's not a clean fire. Obviously, it's open burning. That's why they call it that. We always go there if it's a first-time call. We don't have a history of complaints at the house. Then of course we'll have a conversation with them. We'll get them to terminate the fire and give them a warning. If we're going back repeatedly, they're going to be cited, and they'll be cited repeatedly, and they'll have to come to court and and pay their dues here.
Well, I'm sorry about that, Debbie. I'm glad you brought it up here because it's good. I mean, our employees, even though that's not their department, should have, if you called code enforcement, I would imagine a perfect code enforcement employee would say, man, we don't handle that, but I'm going to forward you to environmental. That's who takes care of this. That's what should have happened. And if it didn't, I apologize. And it sounds like it didn't. So we're going to have to take care of business on our side, and I apologize for that. And I promise you I will follow this up, okay? Because that's not acceptable. Kelly, does anybody want to talk about this? Or besides me? I'd rather not. Maybe we need, and I'm not blaming you guys. I mean, it happened obviously at the fire department. I imagine dispatch got called as well. So this is on a few different, I wish my office would have got called because we know who handles these things. But when I say that, everybody starts calling the mayor's office, and that's,
Mayor, most everyone in our department would know to forward that to environmental. The one thing I will suggest, though, is when you call to get a name of who you're talking to, because if it's not followed up on, I certainly want to know who you talked to initially and anytime you call the
exactly.
office.
So that if we are getting a rude...
So I can go back and then make sure that person knows next time to take care of it.
I mean, I don't get very many complaints like this where my employees sound like they were just completely negligent. I really don't. We have really good employees. So I apologize in this case.
So, Mayor, for clarity, can we tell them what the first step would be and the second step, so in the future she'll know?
You call environmental.
Call environmental for the burning of the log
well,
from the tree. But if you're trying to get a tree cut down, maybe she needs to know the steps to go about that.
There was a neighbor that cut their tree down, and they were trying to burn the stump.
I didn't hear you. What you said?
There was a neighbor that cut their tree down, and then they were burning the stump of the tree in their front yard.
So that was your concern?
Naturally, if it happens after hours, after 5 o'clock, environment. Okay, I understand.
The concern was that her daughter has a trach in her throat.
I
and
understand.
she couldn't breathe.
I understand. if you would call the fire department, like John, Assistant Chief Jody said, don't call 911, but if you call the non-emergency number, they would still dispatch a fire truck, and we would put it out for the people. We'd put water on it to put it out until the guy don't start it again.
How many times have you done that, John?
In the winter, like John said, in the fall and the spring, people are burning leaves in the fall. People have little fire pits outside by their swimming pool, and they're illegal. And we go, a lot of times we don't even put them out. We tell them, please put this thing out. You know, you're not supposed to have open burning in there. And if they put it out, hopefully they do. If we get a call back, then we'll put it out for them. I mean, we usually give them a chance to put it out.
Do you have a date and time when you called each department, Debbie? Like, did you keep any kind of like record or anything? I mean, because when you call certain departments, there's only a couple people that can answer the phone. Okay, so I mean,
When I went to the fire department,
Which one did you go, Debbie, which one did you go to? Which fire department, what station? 73rd and White Oak? If you could get me a day, I can look into it, and I'll get back to you on it.
okay. Anyway, I apologize about that. I think we covered it pretty well. So, any other questions about trees? I guess we started off on trees and we ended up on fires.
We did amend the ordinance recently, about a year ago.
Regarding trees, right? You want to explain that?
The amendment simply says that if, like she was saying from the park department, the ordinance says that if the tree is a nuisance, then you need to contact them. Once they research and find that it's on private property, of course we can't go on private property to cut the tree, and that's what happens. Normally people call and say, hey, I need a tree cut down, and it's not on the parkway. If it's on the parkway and it's dead, we can get it cut down, but if it's on private property, there's a process that it has to go through. But the ordinance alleviates some of the pressure in terms of getting the tree cut down, and then the property owners will be responsible for the cost of that tree being cut down.
Okay. Thank you for the question.
our next question is involving the RBA.
Okay.
I would like to have an update about future of our city Easy Go Hammond bus, suggestions, what we seniors can do to keep it going.
Great. I imagine there's a few people here to talk about that, so this is going to be sort of a story to tell you what led us to where we are right now. All right. When I took over as mayor, we had Hammond Transit, East Chicago Transit, Gary Transit. Each transit system was sort of like its own unique country entity. The buses went around in the cities, didn't really intermingle very much. Our goal from day one was to try to create no boundaries between the bus systems. In fact, make it so that you can get on a bus and, without changing systems, get from here to Crown Point, or to Maryville, or to Dyer if you want to go to Dyer, or to Gary, or wherever. You should be able to get on a bus and go without having to change systems and change buses multiple times, and once you get there, having to worry about whether or not you're going to make it home. That was our goal, all right? And the year that the RDA was developed, Bobby, you remember? Anybody remember? 2008, 2007? In that ballpark. The year that Governor Daniels, and I hate to drop names, but I'm going to drop names. This is how it happened. Governor Daniels created the RDA. I'm a big fan. RDA has been very good to Hammond. All right, a lot of the development we're doing in Robertsdale is because of the Regional Development Authority believed in us and gave us the largest monetary award to date. So I'm a big fan of RDA. I'm not complaining about it, okay? The same time they created RDA, they created the RBA, Regional Bus Authority. That's what's at issue now. They created this, and the purpose of the RBA was for each of the cities to fold up their bus service and to join in to the RBA so that you would get rid of those boundaries. And it would be regional busing, which was the goal all along. I bought into it. Hammond Transit did fine, but it operated within Hammond. We wanted to erase those boundaries. We also had East Chicago Transit and Gary Transit. So at the time, we folded up Hammond Transit, folded it into the RBA like we were being asked to, and the Hammond City Council agreed at the time, along with myself, to give $2 million to the RBA. $2 million, along with our bus system, and the buses, and the employees, and basically we transferred all of our operations to RBA. East Chicago was supposed to do the same, so was Gary. They were supposed to do the same. Never happened. We did what we were supposed to do, what Governor Daniels wanted us to do. And by the way, him and I don't have the best relationship. It's not like I marched lockstep with Governor Daniels when he says do something. I thought this was a good idea. And so did the city council. So we fold into the RBA, and over the last 2 years, in my opinion, they've done a good job. The ridership has gone up. The boundaries have been eliminated. It seems to me like they're heading in the right direction, except for one nagging problem. When they created the RBA, they did not create a funding mechanism. But they said, don't worry, we're going to get it taken care of. We're going to take care of this in the next couple of years. You're going to be the first one in, Mayor McDermott. You're going to set the way, and everybody else is going to follow. And we did. And the funding mechanism to this date still isn't there. This year in the Indiana General Assembly, Linda Lawson, Hammond State Representative, floated a bill. I forgot the bill number. Chris Cantar's not here, is she? The bill number, which I forget, was floated this year to create a funding mechanism for the RBA. Hammond proposed, through Linda Lawson, each community that gets gaming revenue give up $750,000 per year, and Lake County do the same. $750, $750, $750, $750. We offered up $750,000 in gaming revenue. I've never done that in the General Assembly before. That would have created $3 million of local funding, and then we would have had the RDA match that $3 million to come up with the $6 million we need to run the system. It was my idea from the start. We put it in bill form. Linda Lawson floated the bill. It got no consideration at all. Flat out rejected by the Republicans in the General Assembly. Didn't get a committee hearing, didn't get the time of day. And we're literally saying we want to give money to create this. When that happened, and by the way, I got no support from Lake County cities at all. The only person that liked this was Mayor McDermott, really. We floated it, and everybody generally said this is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Mayor McDermott's an idiot for even thinking about this. And I said, guys, I knew at that time busing's dead. The RBA is dead. It has no funding. I knew in January. And I don't know what to tell you. The governor created a bus authority and gave it no funding. I'm the only one that's ever given it money. I gave it $2 million. The city council and the mayor, City Hammond. And now that it's falling apart, they're saying, what are you going to do to save it, Mayor? We don't have the money either. We gave it up because we were asked to, and the last time I checked, our city budget is red ink everywhere. I can't take on another obligation that's going to lose money. It's a bad situation. I don't know what to tell you. Government's failed. It's the poor. Absolutely. And I'm not blaming City Hammond. I think we've done everything we can. We're the good guys in a losing battle. Government, I'm talking about downstate Republicans that blocked this. I'm talking no cooperation locally. Busing is about to die. There's no doubt in my mind. It's going away January 30th. That's not a threat. It's the reality. June 30th. Excuse me. What did I say? I'm sorry. June 30th. I don't know what to say. It's sad, and I don't know what to say. That's everything that I've seen, and I've been intimately involved in this from the beginning. And I've been trying to be a supporter, and it's just at the point now. George?
I've been up at the state.
It's on TV, George. That's why we're doing it.
At the county council meeting, and they operate from a model that no matter what you put into it, it's still going to have to be subsidized. My question to you, and it's just speculatory, is there any way once this system goes down that it can be brought back in a privatized form, devoid of any subsidies? I mean, is that a viable model to run?
Well, like,
I don't know.
Bus systems lose money, George.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There's a couple of angles here. First off, political, okay? Buses are not popular politically. They're not. There's people that are outraged right now, rightfully so, all right? But when you look at the total population, the percentage of people that are pro-busing is a small percentage. It's 10 to 15% probably. So some people, not me, some people say, my constituents don't want buses. In a lot of cases, that's true. Okay, I'm going to say my friend Dave Urette. I don't think he'd even mind me using his name. Crown Point Mayor. Busing's not a popular issue in Crown Point. 99% of his constituents have cars. So for his constituents, if Dave comes out and he's pro-busing, he looks like a big liberal tax and spend Democrat. She's like, Mayor, you got to think about guys like me. My community is wealthy. And we don't need busing like Hammond does. But for a quality of life issue and for an equality issue, I know he's supportive of stuff like that. But it's for the mayor of Hammond, it's a no-brainer. This is super important. But tell that to a downstate Indiana Republican that doesn't like Lake County. And we need them to pass these bills. They don't care. We don't get the time of day. Indianapolis is losing busing. Well, they're cutting back. They're not losing it to the extent we are. They had a bill this year, busing bill, where they said, we want to be able to vote on a referendum whether or not to fund buses in Marion County. We just want a referendum. We're not going to create it. We want to give our residents a chance to vote on it. And the Republicans said, nope. They wouldn't even give them a referendum. The citizens could have come out and said, we don't want to vote for it. But they didn't even let them have a referendum. There is no support for busing in Indianapolis right now. And without their help, we're crippled. So it all falls on us in Lake County, and we don't have a local option income tax. So all of our levies are frozen. We don't have the money. And now they say, oh, by the way, busing's going out of business. It's a bad situation, George. And it's sad because there's people that just don't care. A lot of people that just don't care. Mostly non-Lake County people, by the way. You go downstate, they just don't care. But busing's going to shut down. I don't care. I have residents that need it. I don't care. I don't care. My residents don't need buses, and I don't want to be the type of Republican that votes for tax increases. Yeah.
The Catholic Council, the biggest opposition has been regional, the regionalization of this busing, because the busing seems to be more viable in the more urbanized, highly concentrated urban areas along the lakefront. And there really isn't much support for the outlying areas. And with Lake and Porter, South County and Porter County, is there any way once this thing dissolves as it is now to bring it back to where it was, perhaps?
Maybe.
Hammond having its own, Gary having its own, East Chicago having its own. Just
once our bill failed in the House, once our bill failed, the only thing, in my opinion, the only thing that saves, and I'll say it, and there's a reporter right in front of me, and I have no problem with that. In my opinion, the only thing that saves busing right now is the Regional Development Authority, RDA. They can. They have chosen not to. They can, though. They could fund busing 100%. It's legal. They know it. It was written into the charter. They created the RDA. They choose not to fund busing. That's an accurate statement. They can fund busing. They choose not to. The Lake County Council can pass a local option income tax. They choose not to. Hammond's levies are frozen, and we got red ink everywhere. I have no ability to fund busing at all. We gave it up because we were asked to, and we did the right thing. It's a frustrating situation. Government's failed in this regard, utterly failed. Yes, sir. Michelle? Ma'am, we'll come to you in just a second, okay? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well, my name is Emmanuel John, and I'm also a minister. So I have many people, and I'm a resident of Hammond.
Thank you.
And I have members, although the church that I'm with is in Lake Station, Indiana, but we have members that, are part of the church in Hammond.
Okay.
Now, first of all, I would like to say that I'm very happy to hear your statement about your effort.
Thank you.
To help the busing system in Hammond, because the idea that is floating around among the people that are using the busing system in Hammond was that you didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
But by you making this statement openly, not only that you care, but you have also made a lot of efforts to try to keep it going. But in the transit system going down, the city of Hammond, of course, we're in a very tough economy, practically all over the country. But certain cities like Hammond, East Chicago, and Gary, they are the hardest hit. If I dare to say so, cities like those cities, and a lot of people, and as you mentioned, about 10% of the population. Hammond has about 80,000 people, so we're looking at about 8,000 people in Hammond that would rely on that transportation system to go to the doctor, to a grocery store, and even to work. And even some students, rely on that to get to school. So if that system completely failed, I would think that would also poorly reflect on the leadership of the city of Hammond, especially if Gary and East Chicago were able to keep their system going. So since the last statement you made, that the RDA, it is written in their charter that they are responsible for that. They have the funding.
They could be. They
could
choose
be.
not to.
Okay.
They're a board.
But it's a matter of will and not necessarily of ability. Now, is there any way, Mr. Mayor, that yourself and the city council could assist in keeping it going up until December while you would work with the RDA to try to force their hands into doing
But you
it?
can't.
We gave them money once.
But you have to understand, Reverend, we are literally, we have been cutting, and we have been doing everything we can. We're proposing major changes to our self-insurance fund, which is not popular with the employees, let me point out, all right? And at the same time, my city controller and I were going through this list yesterday. We were being optimistic. We're looking at well, Bob, what if the collection rate increases next year? I mean, meaning more people are paying their taxes. How much will that give us? Well, it'll give us here. And what if this happens? Okay, it'll get us here. And we got to the bottom. Bob, what was our number? 8.5. Upside down still. And to take on the RBA, you'd add another 1.5 to it. We don't have any money. And to take on that obligation is just a huge obligation. And quite frankly, it's one that we shouldn't have to because we did what we were asked to do by Governor Mitch Daniels and the Indiana General Assembly. We were asked to do what I did. I was the first mayor that did it. I believed in it. I bought into it. I understand how frustrating this is, but look around. Let's take a look around Lake County. What's going on right now? You got libraries getting shut down right now, right? You got teachers getting laid off right now, right? You got police and fire, major changes. We're shrinking. We're slashing our budgets. We're doing this. And you think, okay, we all voted, 75% of Hoosiers voted for the Indiana property tax caps. Do we think that people really thought this out before they voted for it? They didn't. What we have done is crippled local government. When I took over as mayor, I got $46 million in property tax revenue every year and $10 million in revenue. And we used that $56 million to finance government, which at the time was around $56 million. I'm pretty close on numbers, right? Now here we are. 9 years later, my budget for the civil city is it's $54 million now, a little bit less actually. Meaning we've cut a lot because the expenses have gone like this over 9 years. So we have cut more than it's risen. We're still about the same, $55 million, all right? And I get $30 million in property tax revenue right now. I get 14 to 15 million less in property tax revenue than I got in 2004 when I took over. And I have the same obligations. And if you look at what we're spending our money on, the number one item is police, staffing. Number two item is fire, staffing. The number three item is insurance costs for all that staffing. Most people I talk to don't want me to cut the number of active duty police officers. I agree with that philosophy. So let's say police stays at 210. Most people I know like Hammond firemen as well. I do too. They don't like me, but I like them. But hold it. I'm explaining something, okay, sir? Most people I know don't want us to touch that either. So if you're saying, Mayor, 70% of your budget you can't touch, because I like police and firemen, all right? That means the only thing left, if we buy into that philosophy, is self-insurance. And then I touch that, and everybody gets upset. What I'm saying is to take on another $1.5 million debt is just completely not wise. It would be a bad fiscal move for us. It would be not wise. And I mean, I can't do it in good conscience. I mean, I would just be pandering for votes if I did something like that.
May I please have a quick follow-up?
Sure, please.
My follow-up would be, if we take $3 million, I didn't do the math, and that's one, and you divide it into 8,000 residents.
But you're assuming that you took one of my percentages. I said 10 to 15% of the population supports busing. Meaning, if you poll an average resident, do you think Hammond buses are a good idea? 85% of them would say no. I don't think it's a good idea. 15% would probably say, yeah, I understand why we have buses. That's what I'm saying. I don't think 10% of our population use buses. I really don't. In fact, I think it's way smaller than 10%. Probably more like 3% that use buses. 15% support buses. I support buses, but I know most of my neighbors don't because they have cars and they hate taxes.
Based on the ridership, and as you yourself have said, that the ridership has gone up under the RBA, and the main city that the RBA service is Hammond at this time.
True.
And that, so if the ridership has gone up, and now they say that they have a ridership of 30,000 per month, then I would say that it would be fair to say that they serve about 7,000 at least of the population, which is about 8% if the ridership has gone up that much. So if we were, Mr. Mayor, to take $3 million and divide it into, or by 8,000, so how much would that be that is actually put to the service of the a percentage that uses the service to not cripple a certain portion of the city because of their inability to commute from one place to another. So this is just, for, thought while, the budget is really stringent and you're doing the very best you can. And as I have said, I certainly respect and admire the fact
No, I
that
appreciate
you have
it. It's a
shown
frustrating thing to me, sir.
interest. Yes, sir.
Because I really, honestly feel horrible about this whole situation. And I think I messed up. You know how I messed up? I trusted the state government. That's how I messed up. I believed them when they said, we're going to create a regional bus authority, Mayor. And I bought into it, and I asked my city council, let's give them $2 million to help ease the pain. And we gave it to them. We bought into it. And now our city is the first to suffer. It's not fair. It's a failure of government. I don't know what to say, sir. I mean, I share a lot of the blame in this. I take responsibility for it because I'm the mayor and I can't blame anybody else, or else I would. But it's a sad situation. I really don't know what to say other than what I've said already. So can we see if there's any follow-ups? I'm sure there's other people.
Can I just add to that? I mean, unless it's an optional income tax, and it's very unlikely that will happen. It may happen, and that would be the county council would have to approve that. Then it would go to the commissioners for final approval. So maybe you need to lobby them, and maybe, that would alleviate and make more resources for all the cities. East Chicago is hurting, Hammond's hurting, and Gary is certainly hurting as well. But
we're the only county in Indiana that doesn't have this tax. I'm not advocating it. It's not within my power to create a local option income tax. I'm just stating the facts. The state of Indiana punishes Lake County by freezing our levies because our county council and our county commissioners have not passed this tax. That's a fact. They're punishing us. It's probably illegal, too, what they're doing to Lake County by freezing our budgets. What level, Bob? 2005 levels. Our numbers have not increased revenue-wise since 2005.
Million. What's that? 34 million.
Yeah.
So no matter how much we develop, how many more buildings, how much more commercial structures we build in the city of Hammond, those people are not going to subsidize government any more than we were getting paid in 2005 because they're frozen at those levels.
Questions about RBA? All right, let's move on. Oh, yes, sir.
What about the dial-a-ride?
I tell you what, Frank does a great job, Trustee Frank Mervan, and that's probably the future. And it's like on-demand kind of stuff, and probably pay-per-ride. The thing is, the RBA is great. I support the RBA. I want to say that. But I don't think they've made wise decisions, like the huge buses that they use. I go down to Marion County. I go out to Valparaiso. Valparaiso has a successful bus system. It's all the short buses, like the dial-a-ride buses. Why do we have these, these monster 50-passenger buses with 1 or 2 people on it? And it's bad perception because
I think that's what turns a lot of people off.
I totally agree with you.
We're down at Calumet Harley. They pull into the bank, and I'll look and go, okay, there's one guy
on there.
Right? One guy on there. And then people get upset. They're like, this isn't worth it. My taxes, and they're wasting money on the bus, and this is crazy. And then they become outspoken, and they scare politicians. And
just to piggyback on that, dial-a-ride, if you're not familiar with dial-a-ride, that's through Frank Mervan's office. And you call, and they will set up a time to come and pick up an elderly person or someone that needs to get to the doctor or maybe the grocery store or wherever. So if you call Frank Mervan's office at 932-2530, his office will assist you in getting a ride for services.
Yes, is it free? They can't handle it.
Really?
This week they have it. My husband and I take the dial-a-ride to the library every Monday. My husband runs a chess club there. And this week they have a driver on vacation. They only have 3 drivers, 3 buses. And they were taking no appointments for anybody other than, like, we're every Monday. They know it's a community thing.
Mm-hmm.
We were covered. Or people who had doctor's appointments. They were taking no grocery shoppers whatsoever.
See, Frank's
Because one
budget's,
driver was on.
Frank's budget's frozen just like ours is. I
Well,
mean, everybody's
part of it,
affected.
I've had extensive talks with people in the transportation department of the township,
Mhm.
and part of it is their dispatchers have no clue what they're doing. They allegedly use a computer system, which I helped someone else when it was still just in the beginning of being used by big companies, like 20 years ago. But you still have to make manual adjustments, and they don't know how. And, I mean, my husband is paraplegic with other medical issues where we need to make personal adjustments if they're gonna be very late, or it's gonna take, you know, they have 2 or 3 pickups after us, and it's gonna take an hour and a half to get home. We have to take care of some of his issues using the library facilities. And a comment I got from the woman in that office was, well, that's the risk you take.
Oh, that's
So
inappropriate.
that's kind of like what you're up against when you're dealing with some.
I'll give Frank a call about
of the
that,
people.
because
The
that's
drivers-
not acceptable.
The drivers are fantastic. The drivers are wonderful.
Thank you. And Frank is a great elected official. I know he wouldn't approve of that, so I appreciate you bringing that up. Any questions on buses? I think we beat this one pretty hard. No, yes, ma'am.
Who is the one that's supposed to work on the, on funding?
On the what?
We don't have.
On the
can-
funding?
Can we
It's
hire?
the
can
county
we-
council and the county commissioner.
Can we hire somebody so that they be so interested as they brainstorm to get the funding?
Well, I know that
Somebody is supposed to be doing this job and it's not doing it.
It's
I
a-
was told I asked many people and they say somebody's lacking in doing their job. And that person, I have no idea who could it be.
Well, there's a
But
lot.
I said, our mayor doesn't want it. He has too many other things that he'd rather be
You're
doing.
talking about another mayor, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, you scared me. I was like, what?
Your Honor, Mayor?
Just making sure.
No, that's true. That's
Wait, are
what
you
they
from
told
East
me.
Chicago, ma'am?
They told me, all of them that I asked, my dentist, my doctor, they are in Munster. I
Uh-huh.
had neuropathy with my legs. 2 years ago, I wasn't unable to get my license anymore. So I'm forced to go to Target for my medicine and then go to Reach Road to my doctor.
Mhm.
Now, the ones that have cars, the pollution, I live by the South Shore, the north side, the short street of Cameron Street,
Mhm.
and the pollution in the South Shore is overwhelming. I've been suffering from inflammation in my whole body. Some mornings, my mouth, I'm inflamed.
Okay.
And there's children and people, families living around that place.
Yeah.
Okay? And they, of course, they don't want one more tax. I've been paying taxes on, well, let's see, I've been married, 42 years, about 60, I'm 73. At least 60 years of paying the real estate, the whole 9 yards on the real.
Okay.
Why not the bus get so much?
Well, I want to assure you that we have a lot of people working on it. The city of Hammond had this.
Of course, we never asked
Okay.
anybody for a ride.
Okay.
Can you imagine the things that are gonna happen without the bus, with the teenagers and rides? With these awful people now running around?
Okay.
It's gonna be a disaster. You asking for more poverty. We have enough poverty as it is, sir.
Okay, ma'am. I appreciate it.
So find a way who can do the job that less language.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Any other questions on busing? Oh, hi.
I'm sorry, I came in on Shelley. Are we talking about school buses or CTA buses?
We're talking about the Hammond Transit buses. The RBA.
Which one?
The RBA.
RBA, not the school buses.
No. It's okay. We have a question over here on RBA. Yeah. Hi.
I just wanted to say that, thank you for all that you have done for me.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We go way back.
Yes, ma'am.
But, there's a part that they never talk about, and that's the paratransfer program.
Mm-hmm.
That is funded through the RBA that you all have assisted with. And this is for the disabled, most of the seniors, kind of like those that have dialysis. It's not for anybody, but it's for those that have dialysis treatments and things like that, where they pay $2.50 and we subsidize the trips. Now those are the ones I'm kind of concerned about. They'll probably end up going over to North Township, which I don't think they can handle that, because we probably provide about, I'm saying, easy 2,400 trips a month. That's a high percentage, and most of those
Yes,
people
ma'am.
are like dialysis that go to do the dialysis up to a month or two. They in wheelchairs and everything, because Mr. Raymond Fletcher is one of the people that use the most. You know, he talks about the bus, but he also uses the paratransit service, you know. And so I'm just like, be concerned about the older people.
I hear you. I agree.
Okay.
Thank you. It's a tough issue, guys. Any other issues you want to bring up on the RBA? Great. I'd like to thank Councilman Bill Emerson from the Hammond's 4th District for being here. Thank you very much, Councilman. Okay. Oh, Councilman Dan Spitali, Councilman at Large. Thank you very much, Councilman. All right, Michelle.
Okay, this next one is a combination of a few different questions. First one, are the rumors regarding closing some fire stations and changes to medical benefits costs to police and department retirees true? If so, what are the details of the changes?
Closing firehouses is not true. That has not been discussed. We have an analyst looking at our staffing levels right now. We have not gotten our report back. In fact, right now, under the current contract, I could not do that, even if I wanted to, because we couldn't touch staffing levels. We're at the lowest staffing levels that are permissible under our contract right now. So I don't know where that rumor started, but that is what it is. It's a rumor. As far as changes to the insurance, that was the subject du jour of the city council meeting the other night. There was an ordinance that went in for first and second reading about changing the city's self-insurance plan. It doesn't affect just police and fire. It affects all city employees. It's the third highest cost in city government. I indicated earlier we're operating in the red by a large margin right now. The only, obviously, you have to look at your top 3 expenses. If you took a hit in your household income, you would have to look at your top expenses and try to reduce them. That's what we're doing as well. We took a hit to our household income, property taxes, so we're looking at our top expenses. My top expense is the police department. Most people, like I said earlier, don't want to see staffing levels change there. So then you have to look at fire department. Most people don't want to see staffing levels change there either, by the way. So then you have to look at self-insurance. I have very few options. By the way, those top 3 probably eat up how much a percentage of our money? Those top 3 I just named.
92, 94%.
So out of those 3, I got 92% covered, which means that when you start adding the cost of the park department, the cost of the inspections department, all these other costs, then you're over budget, which is where we are. All right, but we still manage to get the job done. It's just hard.
The reality of it is, and just be honest, and I'll be the first to say the insurance cost is gonna have to go up. It's gonna have to go up.
I agree with you, Councilman. By the way, if you look at even the final numbers that we're proposing, if those are approved by the city council and signed by the mayor, it's still a good insurance plan. In fact, if you compare the insurance plan we offer to our employees to our average Hammond resident, I would say it's a really, really good insurance plan compared to the typical resident. So we have to do this. There's no options. And I appreciate Councilman Higgs saying what he said, because it's not an easy thing to say. This is a no-brainer for us. We have no choices here, especially if we're not going to touch police staffing levels. I don't think there's too many people. I said, hey, I need to lay off 15 police officers. How many people are comfortable with that? There'd be very little support for that. I'm pretty realistic about this. So we're prioritizing what we have to prioritize, and we're making cuts where we have to make cuts. And that's why to take on an obligation like the RBA right now is just not possible. It's not really even possible to run government the way we are. To take on even more debt is just, yes, sir.
So, Mayor,
based on that, what you just said about that 92 or 94%, and the self-insurance costs you're looking at, are you going to be able to balance the budget?
No, it hasn't been balanced since Mayor Didelo's been in office, sir. What we've done in Hammond for years and years is get it as close to zero as possible and then use gaming money to put it to zero, which is what we've been doing. It's just our reliance on gaming is troubling for me because, in my opinion, gaming revenue is an unstable source of revenue. It's not. When Mayor Didelo took office, through Mayor Didelo's term, it was constantly climbing and then it leveled out. And then I took over and we built a new boat and it started climbing again. And then it went boom. Because everybody's struggling because of the economy and people don't feel like going and blowing $1,000 at Horseshoe when you barely put food on the table, and that's understandable. So our gaming revenues take a hit and we're leaning on it right now. And what happens in Joliet, I always bring up this example. In Joliet, they were leaning on their gaming revenue too. And they said, this boat we got money coming for years. And it burned down. The whole casino burned down. And they had to lay off policemen and firemen. They were relying on gaming revenue. That boat can't sail away. It's too big to get out of the marina. But it could burn down. What if it burns down? We have to think about stuff like that. If it burns down, I have to approach the police department. Hey guys, we got to lay off 15 officers because casino burned down. I got to close 2 firehouses and lay off 30 firemen because the casino burned down. I'm not going to be that mayor. So we have to get off of it. We have to get ourselves as independent as possible. And that's what we're doing. It's hard. I know every time I see a police or a fireman or a city employee, I feel horrible. I really do. Because I'm making major changes to their household income. We have no choice. And I appreciate Councilman Higgs saying what he said. We have no choice. He knows, because he sees the same numbers I see, it's red ink everywhere. It's not a happy time right now to be in government, and it's because we're crippled because we don't have a local option income tax. We have property tax caps that have kicked in, and to further complicate it, in Lake County, they froze our levies. Just Lake County, by the way. One county in the state has frozen levies. That's us. One county in the state doesn't have a local option income tax. That's us. And then people get mad at the mayor. Mayor, you don't like police and firemen. And I don't even know what to say because it's so complicated, it's hard to explain it to somebody, but it's like your anger, like when we shut down a fire truck, January 1st, the firemen knocked on doors and scared Hammond residents. Fact, all right? What I was saying is you guys should be going to the county council. That's your problem. If they pass a local option income tax, our levies are unfrozen, and we have $75 million of extra revenue in Lake County if they pass that tax. That fixes everybody's problems. We wouldn't have to shut down fire trucks. We wouldn't have to think about changing insurance plans.
But they know that ain't gonna fly.
It's not going to happen because of the politics. Because of the politics. So what happens is the firemen knock on doors and say, Mayor McDermott's endangering your family, and I'm the bad guy because people don't understand the situation. I understand it, and I just sit there and shake my head because I don't know what to say. Or when somebody says Mayor McDermott hates buses, he doesn't care that they're shutting down. I just go, I don't even know what to tell you. I've been involved in this from the get-go. I've been on the right side of the issue. It's hard.
Mayor, I'd be willing to say that, speaking for the 99%, maybe the 1% haven't had to look at their household budgets, but the rest of us 99%, everybody's looked at their household budget and made changes.
Yes, sir. I agree.
And I'm behind you.
Thank you.
You're going to have to make changes. You're going to have to make the tough changes.
Yes, sir.
You know, I think the city will support you.
Thank you. It's nice of you to say.
Mayor, one thing that should be mentioned that was part of that question was what effect is that going to have on retirees insurance?
Thanks, Bobby. Could you bring that up?
Yeah, absolutely. The ordinance as it's currently written to change the self-insurance plan is not going to have any effect on retirees that are over the age of 65 and enrolled in Medicare. The city provides a supplementary policy to them. It's one of the legacy costs that we have. It was promised to them as part of their employment. And that commitment will completely stay the same and not change a bit. Not a thing is going to change about that. So if you're a retiree over the age 65 with the City of Hammond supplementary Medicare plan, this doesn't even affect you in the least.
Okay. Talking about insurance. I don't even know how we started, but we ended up on insurance. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes. The retirees currently pay a premium
because they're Medicare
for their policy.
They're Medicare premium, right?
No, they pay a premium to the city to maintain the city's supplemental policy. Their premium is not affected by any of these changes either.
That's not what I asked. They're deductible. Their annual deductible under the insurance.
No.
Well,
That
I'll
policy.
tell you now, there's a rumor out there that the deductible for
Seniors-
retirees is going
It's like
to
saying
go
I
up
read it
to-
on the internet,
excuse
man.
me.
Senior citizens over the age of 65 that are enrolled in Medicare and currently have the supplemental policy have zero, none, nada, no changes to your policy. Nothing in the ordinance to change the health insurance plan for City of Hammond employees affects seniors at all, financially or otherwise, over the age of 65 enrolled in Medicare.
As I was going to say before I was interrupted, there is a rumor out there, just to let you know.
This
so
mayor's
you know
right
what-
out.
So
I
you know
can't
what's
interrupt
out
you.
there. There is a rumor going around that their deductible is going up to $5,000 a year.
Man.
Now, my brother-in-law is a retired Hammond police officer who happens to be in town this week.
Great.
So he's kind of concerned about this, because my sister is
I'm
on
sure he
some
is.
very
I mean,
expensive
there's a lot of people
medications.
concerned, ma'am. I'm concerned.
So that's what I was trying to tell you.
Okay. I can't
I
control rumors.
understood what you explained the first time,
Okay.
but you can't quash rumors if you're not aware they're out there.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
And if you're not age 65,
Between 55 and 60, retiree.
if you retire from
that's
the
not
city of Hammond,
65.
you're not age 65.
If you're an early retiree from the city that's not enrolled in Medicare, you'll have, the city is proposing 3 different plans currently. You'll have the same option as the City of Hammond employees to choose one of the 3 plans that best suits your situation, your current situation in life.
And then once you hit 65, you become Medicare eligible, right?
You become Medicare eligible, and when you enroll in Medicare, you'll pay when you turn 65 and enroll in Medicare. You'll pay the same rate that our current over 65 retirees pay. So there's no change if you're 64 now and going to be 65. There's no change in your post-65 benefit.
Okay, thank you.
And it's in committee right now, so nothing's been passed, so.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yes, ma'am.
If you're 65 and you're on Medicare, you're not supposed to pay a deductible. Because I went to my doctor one time and I was paying a copay every time I went. And Medicare sent me a letter and sent me money back.
Wow.
And said I wasn't supposed to pay a
Well,
deductible.
I'm not an expert on this, so I'm just going to defer to the expert. I guess you're the expert, or other experts at a
So
softball game right
whoever
now.
is doing that, they better check into it. Because
Thank
they're
you, ma'am.
losing money.
Well, I'm going to tell you how we came up with our plan that we proposed. We copied exactly, word for word, what the state of Indiana offers to state troopers and to Governor Daniels' family and to members of the General Assembly. It's the same exact medical plan, word for word. So I don't think it's illegal. I don't know enough about it to tell you off the top of my head, but we copied what the state does. So I really don't think that they made an easy error like that.
Let her know.
Oh, no, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I just want to point out that we didn't just make these numbers up. We literally modeled it right after the state of Indiana. So, any other questions? Boy, this has been fun, huh? Yeah, right.
Let's talk about infrastructure and streetlights.
Next question.
Okay, another rumor.
I
If
love rumors.
we are going to be moving City Hall.
Good question. We talked about it, and we suspended our efforts to do so. That doesn't mean that I don't think it's a good idea. It means that when we realized the magnitude of the financial problems facing the city of Hammond, we said, how in good faith can I go around and explain to the residents this financial dilemma we're in, and at the same time say, oh, by the way, we want to move City Hall to downtown, and it'll cost us $10 million. It just didn't seem like there were consistent messages coming from City Hall. So we decided the best thing to do would be to shelve the plans that were all preliminary for City Hall until we could get our fiscal situation straightened out. And that's where it is. It's been there ever since. It doesn't mean I don't think it's a good idea, by the way. It just means that fiscally it would be irresponsible, I think, to go that way. Yes, sir, George.
Since we're talking about money, can you give us an update on the water situation? How are we doing with the contracts and all
Great.
that? That sounded promising.
No, good questions. Let me come to that in 2 seconds, okay? I don't mind speaking about it. I want to make sure I answered the previous question first. Did I? Good. Okay, water. We are currently, the Hammond Water Department, is Ed here? Who's here on behalf? Hey, Ed, what's up? Ed gets nervous when I talk about this, so I'm going to let you fill in the gaps. I'm going to stay broad. We are currently negotiating our contracts with Calumet City and with Chicago Heights. Calumet City is up sooner than Chicago Heights, correct? And the rates that we're proposing are much higher than they've had for the last 20 years.
Are you getting much resistance?
I mean, and I'm going to let Ed start to come in here in a second because I don't want to create headlines unintentionally, but they've been getting water very cheap for a long time, like 70, 80 cents per 1,000 gallons, and Mayor Emanuel is charging Chicago residents $2.50, or in that ballpark. So if we offered, let's say, $2.10, we're still cheaper than Chicago significantly, but it's way more than they've been paying for years. So are they happy about it? No. Are they going to probably do it anyway? I think it's a good possibility. But I'm going to kick over to Ed right now. Hey, Ed Cruza, Hammond Water Department Superintendent.
The negotiations for both Chicago Heights and Calumet City have been going on for some time. There hasn't been a lot of resistance to price, but details are still being worked out in the contracts. As the mayor pointed out, Mayor Emanuel has doubled his water rates, both to his own residents in the city of Chicago and his wholesale customers out in the suburbs. He wholesales a lot of water. By 2015, his water rates are going to be $3.82 a 1,000 gallons. Currently, Hammond residents pay 46 cents a 1,000, to give you an example. And that's where it stands.
It's funny, when I talk to an Illinois resident that moves to Hammond, I say, what brought you to Hammond? They said, there's two things I love about your city, Mayor. I said, what's that? They said, the low taxes and the great schools. And I say, you need to get out and talk to your neighbors. Because I hear exactly the opposite all the time. But, hey. Anyway, George, did we answer your question on that? So Calumet City is probably going to happen sooner than Chicago Heights. Is that fair to say? And in my opinion, Chicago Heights is the key for us, because if we are going to expand our presence in Illinois, it's going to be through Chicago Heights. So.
What will that come to? When will there be a contract?
During the year. And these are long-term contracts we're negotiating. They're literally 20-year contracts for water. And that's typical in the industry. So sort of like you're getting married. Yes, ma'am. Oh, let's get the microphone over here because it's on TV. All right. We got two questions. Well, we protect them. First off, if you're signing the contract, from Cal City's point of view, you know, they want stability. If they have a chance to bring in a big manufacturing company that needs an adequate water supply, they have to be able to assure the big companies that, now I'm really starting to step in it, that we have commitments from Hammond Water for the long term. That's a fair statement, right, Ed? So it's the customer communities that want the long term, but we're building in protections, and I don't want to give it away. You want me to? We're putting in 2-year reviews. So every 2 years, we go back and say, okay, Cal City, Chicago's charging its residents $4. We're only charging you $2.10. So we're going to bring you up to $3.50 for the next 2 years. Still cheaper than Chicago, but it's way higher than $2.10 that you've been paying the last 2 years. Kick it up to $3.50, make money for 2 years, and then reevaluate, right? And you know, theoretically, if Chicago starts charging cheaper than us, then it's good for the customer community because they could drop us down as well. So it's a long-term contract, but there's a lot of review periods in that contract, okay? Great question. Yes, ma'am. Lori, right? Okay.
Will the increased price be used, the profit from it be used to pay down the $77 million that we have funded for the water separation in hopes of not having any new user fees?
Great question. Oh, I mean, that's a great question. First off, you're dealing with two separate utilities, though, okay? The Hammond Sanitary District, from your seat, you say it's all one government to me because I pay one big tax bill, okay? I understand where you're coming from, but I know how it operates on this side of the fence also. The water department is a completely separate utility than the Hammond Sanitary District, okay? And you're right on point with the bond issue that we had to issue. Had to. The government didn't ask. It was the federal government is forcing us to create this separation. So the $77 million, it's like NIPSCO and AEP, two separate companies, okay? I understand where you're coming from. You're saying, well, if the Hammond Water Department's making all this extra revenue, why don't you use that extra revenue so that the customers don't have to pay the extra bond increase fee? I understand where you're coming from, but it just doesn't work that way. They're separate entities as far as the state government's concerned, the IURC. But I want you to know, and you're ahead of the curve on this, that $77 million, that's just the beginning. The federal government is on Hammond right now in a big way, not just Hammond. Stan, do me a favor, grab the microphone. Talk about the sanitary district separation and what's going to mean in the future, not just for Hammond, for any urban community.
Right. All the older urban communities are all coming under an awful lot of pressure right now by the EPA. They don't want to have any more combined sewer overflows. What that means is during a big, large rain, sewage mixes in with the storm water, and it ends up in the Grand Cal River, and it ends up in the Little Cal River. So for the Grand Cal River, we are constructing a massive storage pond. Anytime we get into a CSO type situation, instead of putting it into the river, we're going to store it in the pond. This is about a $60 million pond. There's some force mains that are going to have to be installed that are going to run from the pump stations that currently pump out to the river. They're going to have to pump into this pond. This is part of a massive nationwide push by the EPA to clean up the rivers and streams. The city of Indianapolis, it's going to cost them almost $1 billion to eliminate CSOs. This is only for the Grand Cal River. Eventually, they're gonna come after us for the Little Cal, which is another situation. We have less CSOs into the Little Cal than there are going into the Grand Cal. I think that's the reason why they prioritize that. But I think eventually we're going to have to do the same thing there.
So, Stan's great explaining things, and he's been an engineer for a long time in the city of Hammond. And, you know, when he says something like CSO, I understand what he's talking about now because I've been working with him for a long time. Let's be honest about what a CSO is. The dirty water that we flush mixes with the rainwater, overflows into the river. So literally sewage is going into our rivers. And this happens an alarming number of times per year.
Yes.
About how many?
It probably happens 40 or 50 times every year. It depends a lot.
And it's been like that for years and years and years.
Yeah, actually before 1939, before the Hammond Sanitary District existed, all the sewage went into the river untreated. And sewage went up into Lake Michigan untreated. City of Whiting had an outfall up until 1950-something that spilled water into Lake Michigan. We don't put any sewage into Lake Michigan since the 70s. We've totally
only in
separated.
CSO situations.
No, not even in CSO situations. We cannot put sewage into Lake Michigan. Yeah, we can put it into the.
I'm sorry, you talk.
Yeah, Grand Cal and Little Cal, but not into our drinking water supply.
So, you know, the EPA's goal is noble. It is. They want to eliminate combined sewer overflows. They want to eliminate sewage going into rivers. All right? And it's a noble goal, and they're hitting urban cities, particularly. Like if you go down to Winfield, a new community, Stan, are they going to have this situation? Why or why not?
They are building their community with separated sewer systems.
So it's a new community, so they have nothing like this to worry about.
Yeah,
their stormwater separates totally.
Yeah, City of Chicago built a deep tunnel, and that's where they store their combined sewer overflows. In fact, during the 2008 massive rain, they actually pumped sewage into the Thornton Quarry, and they flooded one of those chambers to keep as much as possible out of the rivers, out of people's basements.
So the goal is noble. The storage pond that Stan was talking about earlier, if you know where Irving Little League used to play, that is exactly where the storage pond is going to be. And I want to point out, Irving Little League's been playing on Hammond Sanitary District land forever. And quite frankly, when my dad was the mayor in the 80s, he told the Irving Little League, you know, you guys are probably in your last season. He said that in the 80s. And year after year, what we are dealing with now, kept getting pushed back, and finally, I told Irving Little League last season, you guys are playing your last season, and we meant it this time, because we settled with the EPA. In a lot of respects, we agreed upon, although there's still some arguments going on about that, we agreed upon the size of the catch basin, issued a $77 million bond through the Hammond City Council, not because the council wanted it, not because the mayor wanted it, because the EPA is forcing the issue. We're not being asked, we're being forced. And the scary thing is, like Stan said, this is about the Little Cal, this is about the Grand Cal. They could start the same kind of action with the Little Calumet River. And we could be looking at huge numbers to eliminate CSO events into the Little Cal. So you tell yourself, I understand where the EPA is coming from, But in reality, I have to look you in the face and explain to you what's going on. Mayor McDermott doesn't want to do this to your utility bills. This is being forced upon us by the federal government in this case. Do you think we want to deal with this in addition to all the other stuff? This is not something we want to deal with. We're not being asked, though. And I understand where they're coming from. They want to eliminate raw sewage waste into the Grand Calumet River. It's a noble goal. But we're an old city, and we were built years ago with combined sewer overflows. So a Winfield doesn't have to worry about this because they built their city the right way because it's a new city. We're an old city. It's going to affect us. Michigan City, it's going to affect them. Indianapolis, it's going to affect them. South Bend, going to affect them. Gary, East Chicago, going to affect them. Crown Point, probably not. Right? St. John, probably not. Well, they got ditches down there anyway, so. Yes, ma'am.
What can we do to get this situation out to more of the public? I had no idea about
I know.
this.
It's already happened, actually. It's been in the paper. I know.
No, but I mean to put pressure on our congressmen, our dear darling senators, to find a way to help us out. They can if they want to.
You'd have to get the EPA to back off. And I mean,
No,
the thing
I
is,
don't mean that, to help us out with some kind of funding. Because we all know what happens in Washington. If you want to find money, you can find it.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm reading a wonderful book right now about the House of Representatives. It's called Do Not Ask What We Do.
Nice. Thank you. All right. All right. Great. Yes, ma'am. This is about CSO or?
I have a question, please.
Sure.
I realize that my view of things is somewhat skewed.
We're blocking the sunlight from our eyes.
Because I know little, and partly because I am a minority. You know, I'm handicapped and I'm poor. I've been dealing over a year carrying petitions for people to sign about the buses. I realize that this is not going to happen. But I would like to know, for the other people who are also poor and dependent, how do we, it appears to me that we have no dignity or respect. I know that I'm very biased because I've assimilated the church's view that there is a preferential option for the poor. I don't understand how people who cannot help themselves are not helped by government. I'd like to know, how do we ask children to participate in a system where if you are poor, you don't count?
I appreciate the question.
Well, I definitely want to respond in terms of that. I mean, certainly we were not born with the gold spoons in our mouths, and when I speak in terms of the Higgs family, but my parents worked extremely hard to make sure that we had a roof over our head and some food, and we went to school. I have sympathy for poor, rich, black, white, green, purple. It doesn't make a difference. And if there's an issue that affects you, it affects me. Just because I have a car and you don't, it doesn't make me feel any different. But the fact that I know that you can't get to the doctor or get your groceries, that affects me. So as a councilman, I just want to speak in terms, especially for my constituents, I care. And this issue, we went back and forth. Initially, when the buses, I was totally against it. But then the plan came, hey, we're going to give this money to subsidize. And so that's what happened. And the mayor tell you, I was totally against getting rid of the buses. Totally. You know, we were on opposite sides of the fence. And the reality of it is, the plan came back, hey, we're going to give them funding so that they will be able to continue the buses. That was the best option we had available. Now, they need funding. They should have came up with a mechanism to support the buses. after the funding was given to them. They should have came up with a plan. Hey, this is what we need to do to make sure that the buses are secure. What do we need to do? What is our plan from this point forward? We got funding from the city. Now, what can we do to make sure that the buses never leave? And I didn't see anybody step forward and try to do that. Now, why? You got to ask that the board of directors as to why. But I just wanted it to be clear, as councilman of the 3rd District, I understand the reality of not having the haves and have not. And so certainly I sympathize with you and I have compassion for you.
Thanks, Councilman. I appreciate the question. I don't know what else to say on the buses that I haven't said already, so without repeating myself, I'm just going to move on to the next question. So, okay. Phil?
Whose idea was the designer brick crosswalks that were used in downtown?
Who's Phil's?
Next question.
It's the truth. Phil, want to grab the microphone? It's true, right? By the way, Phil's getting married on Saturday. Let's give him a big round of applause.
Well, I don't know if this might have been a compliment. I'm not 100% sure because she didn't finish. But
It didn't sound like a compliment.
It didn't sound like one. Actually, there was a group of us that were together, and it was a lot of people from downtown Hammond, including people from the Downtown Hammond Council, business people from downtown, just people who, city stakeholders, people who care about the city. And we all kind of worked together on this, what we're calling the Holman Avenue redevelopment project. So as far as the brick pavers and the streets, it was a group of us, really. But
Phil?
is it good or bad?
Phil, do me a favor. While we're talking about downtown Hammond, I have a feeling that the newspaper's going to be talking about downtown Hammond tomorrow, about a recent purchase that you all made. Can you talk about that? Because if not, I already blew it for you. So
Well, we haven't closed on it yet, but
Okay.
we did talk about a redevelopment commission last night. The redevelopment commission approved the purchase of the Manta building in downtown Hammond. The Manta building is the building just south of the First Midwest Bank building. And it's important to note too when you're talking about things like this, because you're talking about not having funding for one thing, but then you're able to purchase a building like this. In downtown Hammond, we have a TIF. It's a redevelopment area where funds can be used specifically only in that redevelopment area. And we also have a technology park in downtown, and we're able to use funds from the technology park for certain projects. But we are purchasing a building in downtown. We have not closed on it yet, so we have to get to the finish line. But I don't know if we want to get into specifics yet until we actually close on the building. But there's a lot of momentum in downtown Hammond right now, for those of you that don't know. Hopefully in the next 2 to 3 months, we'll be making some very positive, exciting announcements. And the Redevelopment Commission also just purchased the Harris Bank building, or the Mercantile building, from the HDC. And there's a specific reason we did that, because we have interest from a company in Illinois that wants to move one or two of their divisions to downtown Hammond, including new employees, more foot traffic, and just a lot of positive momentum in downtown right now.
thanks, Phil. Okay, let me follow up on downtown Hammond. Great. Next question.
What will be in the air when they tear down the old paint company?
What's that?
What will be in the air when they tear down the old paint company?
Okay. First off, there's 2 people who probably want to jump in on that. First off, let's talk to Ron first. Ron, I imagine we're talking about on Summer Street, right over by the potash development.
Right,
The Glidden paint factory.
Right, it's the Glidden company. It was not a paint manufacturing company. It produced paint pigments. I've seen the environmental reports there. There's several issues in regards to what's in the building because of the heavy metals such as lead that was the plant's original product out there. So however that plant is going to be raised or reused, there's a series of environmental issues that need to be looked at by the contractor or the demolition contractor or who's ever doing the renovation out there. But we're well aware of those issues. And those are just for the structures. There's other issues in regards to the soil and materials that have been placed out at that location.
I imagine though, overall though, when you hear that that building's gonna be torn down and it's gonna be, at least it's not gonna be the hulking dinosaur building it was, you're happy as an environmental guy.
It's an aesthetic nightmare, but it has a significant amount of environmental issues. So if that comes down, that's gonna be a real plus for that area.
But basically, is it so dirty, it's basically just gonna be a parking lot, or is it gonna have to be capped?
I think it depends upon the eventual use for it. To dig it up and put it to residential would be absolutely unbelievable.
Right.
Depending upon
Not too many residents will run right out the railroad tracks anyway.
Right. So I think from the standpoint, it'll probably be an industrial use and or just open space.
Cool. So could you grab a microphone and talk about the potash development? Thanks.
As many people have probably know at this point, potash was an exciting announcement we made last year. $70 million project, $70 to $80 million project, a company out of Canada that is locating very close. Actually, the building that Ron is referring to, the SCM Metals, is basically the front door for potash, where they're going to be locating right off of Hump Road. But this particular project, they're hiring somewhere between 10 and 15 individuals. IHB retained somewhere between 20 and 25 jobs, and they also hired between 25 and 50 jobs. So it's a very exciting announcement, and not only are we talking about potash, but because they're locating there, there's a number of companies that are now at the table that are very interested in moving somewhere close to the potash facility. So I think you're going to see a domino effect once this company opens. And they're going to break ground in July.
Great. Thanks, Bill. All right. Next question. We have a follow-up on that? I'm sorry. On the potash?
No, I wanted to follow up.
Yeah.
I wanted to follow up on the downtown Hammond one. If my memory serves me right, there was $14 million that the Hammond Development Corp had when they first developed several of the properties.
That was a long time ago.
Right. So is that tied with the same buildings, or is that the one?
Alvin, that money was before I took over as mayor.
Right. But the curious question is that's in the same block, is what my question was.
Well, the HTC is the same HTC. But there was a dispute, and in fact, there was a lawsuit between the city council and the mayor back then about that $14 million, because it was alleged by the city council, and I think they were right back then, that the mayor used HTC to circumvent the council, which meant that in $14 million, if you had $14 million, and I went to the HTC with $14 million instead of going through the council, what that would mean for Councilman Higgs is he would have $1.4 million less to spend in his district. So the council people were furious with the former mayor, Mayor DiDello, when that happened, but the money went into HTC and was spent. And by the time I took over as mayor, there was like pennies in there. Right. So the $14 million is ancient history. I mean, I understand what you're saying though.
Right, but I'm saying that, so HDC is selling the city those same buildings, or are those different buildings?
No, it's the redevelopment commission.
HDC sold the Harris Bank building to redevelopment. The Manta building is owned privately.
Right.
It's not owned by HDC at all.
Thanks, Phil. Yes, ma'am.
Do they have a website where you can get on to apply for the job?
Oh, for potash? Great question. Do we have job fairs coming up or anything? I know potash was part of the job fair, right?
Yeah, we just had a job fair a month
IHB?
ago, and I know they were there. But potash, they're starting construction in July. Really, it's a 12 to 18-month project, so we're still a ways away before they start seriously looking at applications for positions in that facility.
Thank you.
They're great jobs, though. The IHB is also a big recipient of jobs because of that project, the Indiana Harbor Belt. So between IHB, they're retaining a lot of jobs and they're hiring new as well. So between IHB and potash, there's going to be a lot of jobs created in that stretch over there. Thanks for the question. Any other follow-up on those? Yes, sir.
Novak said that it was some issues of environmental issues before they would go in and tear that building down. Would that be made public?
Ron?
That information's already public on the Indiana environmental website. Go to in.gov/IDEM, And if you put in the address under what's called the virtual file cabinet, you can find out everything you want about that site.
But I imagine, and I know where you live, so you live in close proximity to this building.
Correct.
And you're more, can we communicate better so you don't have to go to that website? How about that, right? Is that your question?
Yeah.
And if we find something that's concerning to the neighbors, are we going to be quiet or are we going to communicate it?
Right, because maybe.
You don't want to be sitting there breathing lead out of the air.
Right, and what Indiana may have on the web.
Let me assure you.
May not be what's
I know-
actually in there
I know-
that he may find today.
I know this gentleman very well. And I know for a fact that Ron would never, if there was something to be concerned with, he would be in your neighborhood knocking on your doors. Fair statement, Ron?
Right, the issues that we're concerned about are really in the confines of the site, but when demolition and or removal, truck material falling off tires, those are all things that we want to contain to the site, not get into material outside the site where it gets into sewers or gets tracked out to other areas or for the neighbors to breed. There's a series of regulations they have to comply with, from getting that material to disposing of it. This is one of the significant sites here in Hammond, and we would be devoting a lot of attention to watching those folks.
We'll be on it. I know this is a happy project for us because it is a problem in the neighborhood over there, this hulking dinosaur environmental nightmare. And I totally understand where you're coming from. I want you to know that we know you're in close proximity, and there's a lot of neighbors in close proximity. So we have to be very vigilant, and we're good communicators. We really are. I'm on the radio every Friday. I'm Mayor's Night Out. We go around the community. I'm easy to find. So if you don't think we're doing something right, please show up and tell me, okay?
Okay, I appreciate you all doing something with the property
Thank you.
because it is a big item.
It's a $80 million investment into your neighborhood, and that's just beginning. So that's a happy thing. Thank you, Councilman. This is about potash? No? Anyway? Okay. Do we have written questions still, or Carolyn, did you want to, go ahead, Carolyn.
Well, basically what I wanted to know is what's going on with the Woodmar project up here.
Did I say, I hate this question. I get asked this question everywhere I go.
And with respect to Potash and several of the other companies that are coming here and the different renovation and everything that's getting ready to happen, in order to not have the same situation that we had happen with this developer, are there checks and balances in place?
You're talking about with Potash?
Yes.
Potash is able to finance its operations.
Well, we can address Woodmar first, certainly. Anybody who's driven by, you can actually see that the 12,000 square foot retail building is actually, externally is complete. Now they're working internally. If you've read the newspapers, you've probably heard they have until June 20th to pull occupancy permits for the actual businesses to locate inside. So is he on track to fulfill his agreement? Potentially, but he still has some hurdles to go through to get there. But he has made improvement. But there was a long time, this project, I hate talking about it in front of the mayor because this project has been delayed so many times. It starts and then it stops, it starts and stops. And it's really been a pain for the city. It's been a real pain for the contractors that are working at the project. They're the ones that are calling our department on a weekly basis saying, how come I can't get paid, things of that nature. But potentially he could finish the project by June 20th. And let's hope that he does, because it'd be horrible to get into a litigation situation where we have to get attorneys involved and pay for something like that.
Let's cross our fingers.
As far as the Potash project, it's a completely different animal we're talking about. We're talking about
It's a publicly traded company. I mean,
correct.
It's a Fortune 500 company. So the thing, in my opinion, with Ms. Markopoulos, and I'm usually the less politically correct when it comes to this, Bill's trying to do a job and have a relationship with this guy. I've heard every excuse. So for me, it's hard to say. We're dealing with an individual when we're dealing with Mr. Markopoulos. When we're dealing with Potash, we're dealing with guys that fly in on private jets. So you're not worried about them not being able to finance the operation with Potash. With Mr. Markopoulos, it's a different story. And I appreciate the question.
Mayor, I feel like we're good cop, bad cop when it comes to
I know, and I'm the bad cop. We're supposed to be the good cop. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, I was told that Cabela's is going to close. Is that accurate?
It was named Cabela's National Store of the Year in 2011? 2 years ago. It was 2010? 2010. Store of the Year. It's not closing down.
2011, it finished in the top 3.
Top 3?
Top 3.
It's, I mean, for the same reason that people from Chicago drive to Hammond to buy gas and to buy cigarettes and fireworks and to gamble on our boats, that's the same reason they go to Cabela's. And Cabela's is doing very well there, despite the fact it's not surrounded by anything. And we do have some indications from Cabela's that's going to change in the future. And I'm not going to get into details on that because it's very preliminary, okay? But they're operating solo in an area that used to be a golf, a country club, and they're doing well. I can only imagine once they get some complementary development in there, that's going to be what we all pictured it to be. Thank you. Okay, question. So, written question.
Next one. This is more of a statement that we need more police on Sherman.
Okay, more police on Sherman. I agree. Okay, more police on Sherman. I was going to say more police. I was like, I don't think you guys checked in earlier on that first part. But more police on Sherman. Who do I got here from the Hammond Police Department? Hey, John, how's it going? You switched sides on me.
There's a lot of activity on Sherman by the police department, a lot you may or may not see. Some of you don't see until something happens. Our gang unit over there is especially active. I got to tell you, we don't have officers camping out over there. It's one street, it's approximately 4 blocks long, and we have a lot of streets to cover. So we probably cover it as much as any other, but I guarantee you're receiving a little more attention than every other. Within the last few months, we closed a house, 1200 block on the south side. Father and son was in there, gang activity and drug activity out of that house. We raided it. They had it fortified, a couple pit bulls waiting for us front and back. Very nasty raid. I was there. It was a very hard time getting in, very dangerous for us. The father has been, or is awaiting deportation at this time because we were able to prove that he was involved in felony activity there. We have charges against the son as well. Code enforcement.
Did they deport him and then imprison him, or did they imprison him and then deport him?
He already was a convicted felon when we went in.
So we're not going to put him in jail? We're just going to ship him back home?
He can serve here. In this case, he may well serve here.
And then go home?
And then go.
Okay.
So he's never going to get out of jail again here. So he'll go from jail and he'll go back to Mexico.
Okay.
He'll be deported back there. The son is going to be incarcerated. He's already been charged. He's in jail. And we will have charges there. There's a house on Sherman, 1447, that is actually a Habitat for Humanity house, which kind of bothers us because...
Isn't that crazy? A Habitat for Humanity house is a drug house in this case?
Yes. Well, there's criminal activity coming out of there. We were able to establish that through our gang unit, and we got a warrant, and we recently executed that, had code enforcement involved again, and we're going through the eviction process now. It's our perception that that house was actually responsible for a huge amount of criminal activity propagated against the residents of Sherman Street, burglaries in particular, the drug sales in particular, but people that were feeling crime over there, there was like a little directorship going in and out of this house. It wasn't actually a whole lot of criminal activity, but the person that was in charge of a lot of the criminal activity was in that house. So that's something we've worked on very hard, worked with code enforcement. We hope that settles things down over there for you. So that's just 2 examples of 2 houses this year, just within the last 3 months we've closed for you. And so I do think we're active over there, even if you don't see us all the time, because you're not going to see our narcotics units. And sometimes even our gang unit is working subversively, trying to stay in the shadows a little bit. And then hopefully you'll keep seeing these big things happen that have a big impact on your neighborhood. Until then, all I can say is please keep calling us. And I'll try to have the black and whites roll through as much as possible. But the thing about a black and white, remember, everybody loves to see them. But if I'm a bad guy, I'm going to step back in the shadows. When he goes back, I'm going to step back out. If I can have narcotics shut your house down and code enforcement can kick you out of that house forever, we did something. We accomplished something.
Speaking of,
trust us.
I want to bring in City Attorney Chris Cantar, who's our pit bull when it comes to problem properties like this. Chris is creative and smart and mean, in a good way, mean for us. And in this case, Chris came up with a really creative way to get rid of these problem properties. Could you talk a little bit about it, Chris?
First, I want to welcome Mike back to town after serving our country.
How long were you gone for, Mike?
5 years.
5 years in Afghanistan, right, Mike? Sorry? 5 years in Afghanistan?
No. I just did 12 months over in Iraq back in 09, but spent the rest of it in Kansas.
Hammond boy, worked for the city of Hammond, went off into the Army, and now he's back, probably wants a job. Welcome back, Mike.
Welcome back, Mike.
Good to see you safe.
The city of Hammond has practically a third of its properties as rental properties, and the problem being if you cite the tenant, they're a transitory population. So you can cite them, and they don't own anything anyway, they wouldn't be renting, and they take off and they just go somewhere else. So the city of Hammond decided instead to target the landlords, the people who rent to the people who tear up the neighborhoods, who usually, most of the times, 2/3 of the time, live outside of Hammond. They live in Valparaiso, and they live in Chesterton, and they live in Munster, and they live in Illinois, and they live in Chicago, and other than to show up and collect the rent, they have no idea what's going on, and they don't care. So we started making our problems their problems, and we started citing the landlords, because if the Hammond police can figure out that people are dealing drugs out of a house, there's no reason the landlord who has access to that property can't figure out that people are dealing drugs out of that house. I had a landlord who just called me yesterday and said, how am I supposed to know that there were children's bedrooms down in the basement with glass block windows, bunk beds, no way out if there's a fire? How am I supposed to know? I said, you're the landlord. How many kids are supposed to be on that lease? If you've got 7 kids on this lease and it's a 2-bedroom house, where do you think they're sleeping? So of course, everybody says, well, I don't know. How am I supposed to know? So we've started citing the landlords, and we've had the nuisance property program. I think there's 200 houses on the nuisance property program. I had to finally cut it off and just go from 2011 forward. Some of the landlords have been through the property program multiple times. Habitat for Humanity owns 16 houses in Hammond. 4 of them have been through the nuisance property program. So, they're not exactly on the top of my list. And 1236 Sherman and 1447 Sherman are currently through the nuisance property program. And of course, every time we bring them in, the landlord says he doesn't know, and the tenant says, oh, that was so-and-so, he was just staying there, and now he's moved out, so there's no more problems. But that is hardly ever the case. So we just want to let you know we are doing something. We're taking the problem, we're pulling out the weed by the root, and we're going after the landlord, and we're making them accountable for the people that they collect money from that terrorize our city.
And Chris brings up a great point about children in the basement. Very early in my administration, I think it was my first year in office. I'm sure the councilman remembers this, and I know code enforcement and inspections remember this. Families 2 blocks away literally burned to death in the basement of their home because a fire started at night, they were sleeping in the basement, they had the double pane windows that you can't break through, and the staircase that went up to the main floor burned away. So when they discovered there was a fire, there was no way out, and they died in the basement with no way out.
That was Portia and the Jones family, and in fact, we had a fund set up. I set up a fund to help with some of the expenses. Yeah, that was
a horrible thing.
Yeah,
that was a horrible thing. That made an impact on me. Because, you hear about the problem about cut-ups, and then when you see a family that died because of the landlord that allowed that situation, you realize how important their job is and how important Chris's job is. We need to stop this stuff. It's like a cancer in our community. And it doesn't make us popular with the landlords. Doesn't make us popular at all, but we're doing what we have to do to fix the city. So, Jimmy?
Yeah, we inspected in the last couple of weeks every rental property on Sherman. A couple had illegal apartments that we're currently removing. Everybody knows who the problem person is in that area, but no one will pick that person out of the lineup. That is the problem. If they would take them out of the lineup, PD would arrest them, I'm sure. It's unfortunate, but they're going to live in terror until they band together and decide to tell PD who this person is.
Thanks, Jimmy. Yes, sir.
Yes, and the police do know who he is. And, people come to me telling me, well, because I'm the precinct committeeman over there, people are breaking in our homes. And I mean, they're breaking in homes once, twice a week. We know who the guys are. You pick them up, ask me to identify, because I'm not afraid of him.
Could you hang out after?
Sure. That's crazy.
Hey, can you talk to him after?
And we need more police over
Yes,
there
sir.
because they sell drugs all day. You know, it's just breaking in homes. Some of the seniors are afraid, you know. A neighbor of mine across the alley, I used to always be out doing my lawn in the morning, so she would come out. She said, I don't see you out there anymore, so I don't come out to do my lawn in the morning until my son gets home. She should be able to have the freedom to come out and work in her yard without being afraid.
Do me a favor, hang on after the meeting, would you? Thank you. Okay. Next question, please, Michelle.
This is for the Parks Department. He would like to know why my wife's scrapbooking got kicked out of Jean Shepherd Center on Thursday nights after being around for 8 years.
This is scrapbooking?
Scrapbooking.
Yeah, I got a couple complaints in the mayor's office about this. Interesting. Hi, Donna.
My apologies, I know nothing of this.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I heard
My
about
job
this.
typically takes me outside during the day. I'd have to.
Question here. Hey, Butch. Your wife got kicked out of the Jean Shepherd Center?
Yeah, I'm just telling you exactly what happened.
Okay.
I can let you know this. They went there, I think it was last Thursday night, and they were told they could no more come back.
By who?
I don't know who it was. It might have been Robin. I mean,
It wasn't by the mayor. I don't think it was by Donna.
No, it wasn't by Donna.
Who was it?
I think it was Robin, is who they said it was.
Do we know that for sure?
My wife could probably tell you. I think she left a message.
I got messages in City
Right,
Hall about this,
but
and I forwarded them to the Park Department Friday night.
They've been going there since Rita Novak started it. They've been going there every Thursday night, and somehow they kept getting pushed out. And I know it's not a real busy place on Thursday nights over there. We know this for a fact. But they kept getting pushed out. Finally, they told them they couldn't come back no more. And I believe it's because of one lady that somebody didn't like.
Could you explain so I understand?
Oh, it was explained.
Okay.
They all knew about it. It was just something that come up.
This is the first I've heard about it. Yeah. I know Donna's filling in for Pat.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a way we can accommodate you if you can't be at the Shepherd Center. We can have you at the Civic Center.
Well,
So let me follow up.
This
I'll
is a
get the
Hesco
info.
group, though. I mean, why don't we find out what's going on? And
Okay.
I forwarded a message to the Park Department just today on this very issue. I didn't realize it was going to come up at Mayor's Night. So tomorrow we'll follow this up, Butch.
The thing of it is, the Shepherd Center is a real good place for everybody because from Hessville, a lot of women are from that area.
Right. I
They
understand
come out.
totally.
And they've been doing this.
If there's not a good reason for this, I want to find out what happened. Because we don't just kick community groups
Right.
out.
I mean,
This
you
is a
can
community
check-
building.
Check into more and find
I will,
out.
promise
mean,
you, Butch. Hey, Butch, you and I know each other. You know I'm going to follow this up.
Yeah, you know how I am. I don't come.
I know you'll call my office 20
No
times if I
problem.
don't. So.
Okay. Hey, I appreciate it. I just want to make
No
sure.
problem. We'll follow it up, Butch, I promise you. And Donna will follow it up tomorrow. We'll find out what's going on and we'll fix it, okay? Thanks for coming.
You've got his info on there, right, Shel? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Butch. Okay. Wow, this is fun. Mayor's Night's a great thing, though, because it gets me out in the community and brings accountability. And if there's a problem, you hear it directly from the mayor or directly from the department heads. So, all right, let's move on to the next question.
It is Bonnie Henry from Crime Watch. I'd
Hi,
like
Bonnie.
to make an announcement. This is our
Robertstown,
final.
Whiting Robertstown Crime.
It's a public service announcement.
Great.
If I take this out here. The Crime Watch groups in Hammond are, I have flyers over there on the table. It's about human trafficking, and the sheriff did say that it's happening around here, and the FBI will be coming out to Clark School on June 7th at 6:30, and everyone in the city of Hammond is invited to this. Janet and I have been running around the whole city talking about this, and I'm not very good at this. Okay. Cindy and Janet and myself will be on WJOB May 25th, 7:15 a.m. talking about this. We'll talk about it in more detail. But there are flyers back there you can pick up, and it concerns you if you have children, grandchildren, nieces or nephews. They want boys, girls. These scumbags want boys, girls, and women. They don't want you men. You know,
I don't blame them.
So anyway, the FBI is putting on a program, and they do keep asking me how many people will be there, and I have no idea. You know, I've been trying to get counts from different Crime Watch groups. So we'd be happy to have all of you come out if you can.
And what's the date on that again?
June 7th, 6:30 at Park School.
Okay, maybe you can get it on the announcement for the mayor's
Yeah,
show.
yeah, I'm gonna have it put on the city.
Yeah, and then I can read it off on Friday morning radio show.
We sent everybody in the city, I think Janet got everybody in the city, one of these sent on the email
Thank you.
about a month or so ago. Okay. that's
Thanks,
all.
Bonnie, appreciate it. Okay, that looks like it's it. As we've been doing Mayor's Night every month that I've been mayor, well, it used to be every month, it's more infrequent now, it's 6 times a year. But Mayor's Night's a great way to get around. I want to remind you that I do have a radio show every Friday morning on WJLB. It's an open format, just like what you just had, except for it's on the radio. This will be viewable on Go Hammond TV. We had live audience watching tonight. It will be on demand. If you want to watch it again, you can watch it over and over if you want. It'll be on Go Hammond TV, free of charge. So thank you guys very much. It was an interesting meeting. Oh, seems like
Mayor,
we
we
have
had
one
one
last
more.
statement.
Sorry.
Mayor, my name is Sal Bird. I own Jason Sports Bar and Grill. I have a little, I don't know if it's a complaint or what, but I got cited for weeds in the back of my restaurant, and I came to court. Now they want me to pave the parking lot. The weed situation was never brought up in court. Now I got estimates for parking to pave it, and it's anywhere between $17,000 and $30,000, which I cannot afford right now. And I was wondering if there's anything we can do to help me out here. I'm trying to stay in business. I have 15 employees that work for me. I need your help. Is there anything we can do?
Just for a little history on the situation, Mayor, he has an all gravel parking lot, not level, a lot of water sits in it.
We had a similar situation down south with another business.
Customers were parking in the residential area and kind of stepping away from parking all around the building. If you have a parking lot, it should be a non-porous surface, concrete or asphalt. So that was part of the citation, was the weeds and some other issues that were going on there. So I understand it costs a lot of money, and I can't let that be based on how it's affected by ordinance.
I don't know anything about the situation. I know we had a situation with Flat Rock that was similar, and we enforced the ordinance against Flat Rock.
That's correct.
What's the current situation with Flat Rock? Because it's a similar situation.
They had a zoning issue as far as...
Well, they're allowing people to park in residential areas, and we clamped down on that. And then they had a parking issue with the lot that was similar to this, right?
And I believe it's part of that lot is the business next door, and I believe they're working together to try to get that paved.
So they're going through the process right now.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Well, I am spending money to level it off every few months. I mean, I even got Bernie that worked, the Gerzola coming out there this weekend to level it out again. I just cannot afford $17,000 right now.
I totally agree.
I mean, is there something that the city could help me with, or is there some kind of program?
I mean, not really.
Borrow me the money, I'll pay it back, I promise.
Well, I don't have sense.
That's interesting.
Well, why don't we try to work together and see if there's some type of agreement we can make? And I know we worked with Flat Rock and resolved that situation. And I know that they're moving in the right direction, right? We're not looking to put you out of business, sir.
Not at all.
We're not. I mean,
doing my best to
I like
stay
your
in
pizza
business.
too, so I mean, I don't want to.
I mean, and we do have good food there, but
I know you do. I know you do. So why don't we get together with Fred and see if there's something we can do? Why don't you approach us, okay? All right, thanks, guys. All right, thank you guys for coming to Mayor's Night Out. I will see you on June 27th in the 2nd District, Hass School. Thank you. Oh, by the way, Angela. All right, hug this one.